Have you ever felt like there's something more to life than what you're currently doing?
Do you see the world differently than everyone around you?
Do you ever dream of achieving big things but feel stuck? We're Tiffany and Sid, and we are the Cycle Breakers.
Not long ago, no one believed in us.
The people closest to me said I'd make a great receptionist.
And mine completely abandoned me and left my life.
We started our journey 5 years ago in a basement.
Now, we live our dream life in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. But how did we get here?
We saw a life that was much better than the one we were living.
And broke through the blocks that hold most people back.
Like self-sabotage, crippling self-doubt, and the fear of rejection. But we knew we were made for more, so we bet on ourselves to make the life that we wanted.
And jumped into a life dedicated to breaking old cycles and patterns.
And now we live on 97 acres in the Smoky Mountains. We travel the world speaking on stages, and we help a small army of people break their cycles as well.
We're the Cycle Breakers, and we break through blocks that are holding most people back so we can go live our dream life.
Welcome to the Cycle Breakers Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this episode of the Cycle Breakers Show. I am one of your hosts, Tiffany Toombs Clevenger, joined by my amazing husband, who doesn't listen to my instructions very well, Sydney Clevenger.
Sid Clevenger, Sydney Clevenger. Always joked, if it was Sid Clevenger, that means you're happy with me. If it's Sydney Clevenger, that means you're not that happy with me. But I'm super excited to be here. We're just going to call myself Sid Clevenger today because everybody's happy with me. Yeah.
We'll see if I have to cut any parts of this podcast episode out because you want to go on random tangents that have absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Like I live in the South, okay? So living in the South, I guess I'm given permission to go off on random tangents and talk to people until midnight.
So in this episode, we want to address the topic of manifestation and talk about the most common reasons why people are not hitting their manifestation goals, why they're not manifesting the things that they want. I love manifestation. I am as woo-woo. I am as woo-woo as they come. And the law of attraction, manifestation, coaching space, and even like self-help space drives me absolutely bonkers because it leaves out so many key pieces of the journey for people that people then get so discouraged or they, just think that it's BS and it doesn't work. So we're going to set the record straight in this episode.
Yeah. I mean, I think manifestation is like really cool because it's something that, people, it is really a great skill to have. I mean, when you can look at something that you want and then just in your brain be like, this is how I'm going to get it is really, really neat because it really creates unlimited possibilities. I mean, you can look at me and Tiffany when we moved here to the 97 acres here in the Smoky Mountains, right next to the Smoky Mountain, National Park, that was manifested. Like we had no clue how we were going to do that when we lived in Texas. None. We never lived here. We didn't know what it was like. We had only been here.
We didn't have any clue, but there was a key piece that we did that most people don't do. Continue.
Yeah, we'll talk about this in this episode, but I think at the end of the day, that's really what's so great about this is I think anybody can look at what they want. And then there really is specific things that can help you get there. And there's also specific things that hold you back from getting there. So I'm really excited about this episode because we're really going to go over the specific things that hold a lot of people back from manifestation that you said, there's millions of people that talk about manifestation, but it seems like all of them miss these pieces that we're going to talk about in this episode. So I'm super excited about it.
So there's a jarring truth, a fact that we need to start with that might trigger some people, but I'm going to say it.
Jarring truth.
That's a jarring truth.
That's a phrase.
That we are all already master manifestors.
I believe it.
Wherever your life is, whatever your life is right now, whether you're happy with it or not, how much money you have in the bank, the relationship quality that you have, the job you have, all of that, you manifested. Because we attract what is on the same vibrational level as us. So you've manifested. You've already manifested. You may not like what you've manifested, but you've manifested. And as somebody who has manifested some crappy things in her life, and then some amazing things,
but yeah,
and then some amazing things in my life, obviously now, I've learned the key pieces to stop manifesting crap and to start manifesting the things you want. You want to know what they are?
Well, I sure hope that I'm part of the awesome manifestation things.
Of
So
course you are.
some people are thinking, like, is Sid the crappy manifestation thing, or is he the awesome manifestation thing?
You're an awesome manifestation thing
Yes.
99% of the time.
Well, you're
And
90 of the time.
even 98%. Oh, I was gonna say, even in the 1% time, I'm still grateful for you.
Yeah.
So one thing that people don't talk about, let's talk about what the manifestation world talks about. They talk about raising your vibration. Like attracts like. You attract what's on the same vibrational frequency as you. And so this leads people to believe, I always have to think about what I want. I was teaching one of our rapid rewire trainings on the weekend, and we kind of went on a rabbit hole, and we were talking about manifestation. Somebody said, so do I need to, because there's a manifestation technique called like 369, and I'm probably going to mess up exactly what you have to do. But basically, you have to write down 3 things that you want to manifest, and then 6 times a day. Did you ever have to write lines in school? Like when you got in trouble, you had to write
Yeah.
lines. I will not do this. I will not do this.
Yeah.
So you write 3 things that you want
By
to
the way,
manifest.
I will not is horrible language. So they kind of screwed themselves from the maybe I will not anymore, because like obviously not isn't a word that our brain doesn't recognize.
Exactly. So they were just getting us to program ourselves to
This is why
continue the
school is
behavior.
dumb. That's part of the reason why school is dumb.
All right, we're not gonna, that's a whole other tangent. So 3 times a day, you have to write down 3 things that you want to manifest. And then 6 times a day, you have to write each of those 3 things out 9 times. Like, I want this dream car. I want 97 acres of land. I want 97 acres of land. I want it. And the point of that is to get the repetition into your brain, right? The thing is, all of these magic strategies will not work if you do not do the work on the lower vibrational crap inside of you. We all have it. You can sit here and be like, no, I'm all sunshine and rainbows and lollipops. Sweetheart, no, you're not. Yes, we all have a light and a dark side, right? We all do.
Mm-hmm.
And when we become so afraid to look at our shadow side, when we become so afraid of the skeletons in our closet, we just attempt to bury them. There's this, I don't even know what to call her, celebrity, I guess, Jojo Siwa. I think she became famous from like one of those dance moms or toddler
I
and
have
Tiara
no
show.
idea what you're talking about, but
Anyways,
dive in.
she's all over my TikTok right now, totally against my will. I don't know why, but she did this interview the other day where she's like, I'm not going to therapy because I'm really good at shoving things down. And like that mentality, the same with the positive psychology, like you just always have to think positive and everything's always good. And how do I always like never let yourself feel negative emotions?
Jeez, that's like absolute BS.
All that's doing is just shoving down the shadow side.
Yeah.
And you secretly fear the shadow side, which keeps you in a low vibration. So we have to be willing to look at the emotional baggage that we haven't dealt with. We have to be willing to look at the limiting beliefs that we have, right? Just because you look yourself in the mirror and say an affirmation that you believe that you're worthy of something does not mean that affirmation is actually making it into the unconscious mind. So,
especially if you don't believe it, and you can that's in your stomach. Like, I used to sit in front of a mirror and do that stuff, or like listen to high motivational videos. I'm gonna listen to motivation in the morning, and then when I would do that, like, I mean, my gut, like they always say your gut's always right? So like my gut was sitting there like fighting me on it, but I'm sitting there trying to force or grind myself to say it, and it never.
Yeah.
Never.
And so, because what happens is you've got the unconscious mind, which is the highly suggestible part of your mind. That's the part of your mind that's in control. That's where you need to embed the suggestions of what you want to create. And your unconscious mind is programmed to then open up and find the fastest and easiest way to that thing. And that's where, what we call serendipity and coincidence and blah, blah, blah. It's because our unconscious mind has opened up to that. Then we have our conscious mind, which is the voice in your head that you hear. And in between the two, we have a gatekeeper. So the gatekeeper's job is to protect the unconscious mind because it has no autocorrect. If something gets into the unconscious mind, it's taken to be absolutely true. So if we are BSing ourselves, to be totally frank, which a lot of affirmations are, right? You're standing there going, I am a millionaire, when you know that you're struggling financially and you can't pay your rent this month or your mortgage, or you're struggling to buy groceries or whatever. Then what happens is that bounces off the gatekeeper and it doesn't even get accepted into the unconscious mind. This is why so many affirmations either take so long to create like a different reality, or they just flat out don't work for people. So what we have to do is we have to realize, okay, I've got this limiting belief, right? If we didn't believe that it was, so what you said in the beginning, we didn't know how we were going to find 100 acres. We didn't know what that looked like, right? We didn't know the details. We didn't even really, we kind of knew Eastern Tennessee, but
I think that's the beauty of it though, is that it was just created in our head and it literally
but
showed
yeah,
up.
but what I'm saying is we believed it was possible, right? We knew that it was possible. We knew that we were worthy of 97 acres. You know, we were in alignment from our belief side.
Mm-hmm.
We were unattached to how it showed up for us.
Yeah.
Right.
Nailed
so
it.
we were like, I don't know how, but it's going to happen. That was kind of our premise, but we believed that it was possible. What
And I
most
hate to
people
say,
do.
there's a lot of trust that goes into that. Like there's a lot of like, it's not right in front of me, but I feel it and I know it's coming.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's a big part of manifestation, is that you have to surrender and detach from the outcome, right? You have to go on the journey and take the first step, even though you can't see the second step. That's literally why
and there was a lot of times that those steps, like it felt like you'd be walking into a black hole. Because
well,
you're like,
and
you can see it, but I know
and
it's coming. And that was a skill that you taught me.
yeah. And then, I mean, there's people who are like, no, I need to know the whole process. You don't need to know the whole process. You just need to take the first step. If you need to know the whole process, then you don't feel safe enough to not be in control. You don't feel safe enough to co-create with the universe. You don't feel safe enough for serendipity and coincidence to show up. You're basically saying, the thing that I want has to show up in an Amazon box that's like these specific dimensions to my front door, or I'm not going to accept it. But what manifestation actually is doing the inner work. What belief systems do I have inside of me that are out of alignment with this thing that I want? I'm going to start working on those. And then I'm going to start walking forward. I'm going to start taking steps towards what I want to create, knowing that it's going to show up somehow for me.
You ever notice that when you start taking, like, at least for me, I know, like, it's like, I hate to say this, and I wish there was like a specific like framework or step by step, but there really just isn't. Like when I would start like taking, like it's literally just doing what's right in front of you, and for whatever reason, just most people don't. So no, if you do what's right in front of you, or you do what you know you need to do, 90% of people are not doing it. Like I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. 90% of people are not doing the first step when it comes to getting what it is that they want. So I just remember like so much momentum would build in every step that I took. So once I realized that that was happening, I literally was just so focused on taking the next step. And it literally just pushed away any fear or angst that I had, because I was just like, okay, well, whatever's in front of me today, I'm going to go and do it to the best of my ability. And I just let go of being wrong or making mistakes, because I knew if I took any step at all, momentum was going to build. And the bigger the momentum build, the easier this got.
Yeah. I think one of the most common belief systems that stops people from manifesting is this belief that you can take the wrong step, right? Like people want validation that, well, if I do this, if I take this step, I'm not going to be wasting my time. I don't know if I've ever told you this story before, but about a year before I left Australia, I was dating this guy and he was a detective. Mm-hmm. And we didn't date for very long, but he was a detective and he hated it.
He was a detective. Like he was probably detecting every little thing that you did.
So no, he had other issues. But anyways, he was just burnt out on being a detective. I think he was in like the anti-terrorism unit or something like that. So I mean, that's some pretty heavy crap you're dealing with, right? No. But he was just so burnt out on being a detective. Also, his ex-fiance that cheated on him was a detective in his same unit, so that may have played a role. Who knows?
They were but each other,
right? So but he loved fitness. And at that point in time, I owned like 4 different gyms around Melbourne. And so he loved fitness. He would like, if we didn't have a date, he would go home. He would listen to like fitness podcasts on the train to work. He would listen to fitness podcasts on the way home from work. If, we weren't getting together or he didn't have any plans, he would just sit and like binge on fitness content. Some of our dates were just going to the gym together. And he was like, being a personal trainer would be so awesome. Like, I'm so jealous of your job. And I was like, so why don't you like get your personal training certification and move into personal training? And he was like, well, I've been a detective for 10 years. I'm like, and he's like, well, all that time would be wasted. Right. I'm like, so you're going to continue doing something that you absolutely hate, that brings you no joy, no satisfaction, because you're worried about wasting the last 10 years. And it just like in that moment, I just realized that this is what so many people do, is they commit to a direction because they don't want to admit that it was wrong. Or they're like, what if I take this step and it's wrong and I waste time? Like, if we just let go of this notion that any time is ever wasted, right? Like, I would not trade. And I've done some, I've been in some crappy situations. Obviously, people know my story if you've listened to some of our episodes. I've been in some crappy situations and I would not change any of them because they all made me who I was today. When I had that breakup with the ex that I had the miscarriage with, my best friend at the time was like, man, I wish you'd never dated him. And I was like, but if I never dated him, then I never would have become aware of this trauma and these patterns. And I never would have started my healing journey. And he said, okay, well, I wish you hadn't dated him for 3 years. And I said, but the thing is, if I had have dated him for even 1 day less than what I did, I wouldn't have had the pain that I needed to push me to make this change. So, I think it's probably the school system that kind of teaches us that failure is a bad thing, but let go of this belief that there's ever a wrong step. You're going to take a step and then new paths will open and you'll either go in a completely different direction or you'll keep going in the same path, but you never know until you take that step.
Yeah. Well, I think for as simple as it sounds, I think everybody knows what they need to do. Like, I know that sounds simple, but if you're listening to this, or you're watching this right now, and you're like, I want to get this thing, and then you look down and you're like, okay, so what is the first step that I need to do? Many people know what that is, usually because they have thought about, or in my case, had obsessed about the thing that I wanted for so long that you just naturally are like, okay, well, I need to do, this is the first thing that I need to do.
But their fear and their limiting beliefs make them doubt that, right? And then they become easily influenced and persuaded by influencers and other coaches in the market who are like, no, you don't need that thing, you need this thing. We were talking about that earlier today, how some people buy programs and coaching programs, whether it's sales or other things, that are way more advanced than their current step. And so
thinking that that's going to almost leapfrog them, when in actuality, if you start on step 20 instead of starting on step 1, even if you get step 20 right, it's going to fall through quicksand because the foundation isn't built correctly.
Absolutely. And so at an unconscious, like intuitive gut level, people do know, but people are so disconnected from their gut and intuition. And then they've got their fear and their limiting beliefs playing in, that they might not be able to consciously access that next step. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's really important to mention here too. Like, I know you mentioned influencers, but I really think that one, this guy's got his stuff together, and two, that this really fits here is, Alex Hormozy talks about how many people can be, so say someone knows you get the first step and they're like, I don't know what to do. And they kind of go in like, like we talked about in the last episode, they kind of go into like this stressed out state where like they start to think about making a bad decision or not taking the first step instead of allowing themselves to make the good decision, regardless of the emotional state that they're in or the stress that might come along with that, which is a limiting belief, by the way. Tiffany's going to touch that in a second. But I think Alex Hormozy says this quote that is just it hit me like a ton of bricks when I first heard it, and it was many people can be proficient in something in 20 hours of focused work. So think about 20 hours. That's like 2.5 days 2.5 days of focusing on something. That's not a lot. And that's if you absolutely know nothing. Nothing. And the challenge that most people have though is they wait years to start that first hour. And I think like when I first heard that, it made me move so fast. I sit there and I was like, holy cow, like he's nailed it. He's 100% right. Because there's all these things that I want to do, but I'm just letting them sit in my mind without actually taking the first steps. And it's amazing that when you take those first steps, how fast things really just start to open up for you. Because at least for me, if I didn't know the answers, but I started taking the first steps forward, the answers came because of the momentum that was built.
And you'd figure out what questions you had, right? If you
Yeah, a
sit
lot of
and
times I had the
plan,
wrong questions to begin with.
if
And I
you
was
sit in
I was worrying about things and questions that weren't even going to exist.
if you sit in planning mode for too long, attempting to think of all the possible questions you can have, it's not possible for you to think of all the possible scenarios and all the possible challenges that you might have. You're going to learn by doing. We were at a conference recently and somebody shared this story about this father and son who were walking through this canyon, and they kind of got lost, and they came about this fork in the path, left and right, and they were like, I don't know which way to go. Which way do you think we should go? I don't know, totally lost, we don't have a map. So they both prayed on it, and God told both of them, go left. And so they went left, and they were only like 100 feet down the path, and they came to a solid rock wall. They couldn't go any further. So as they're walking back, now knowing that they have to go right, that's the only other way out, the boy says to the dad, why do you think God told us both to go left? And the dad said, well, if we had gone right, we would have been second guessing ourselves the whole time and wondering what was left. So God told us to go left so that we could come to that dead end quickly and then take the right action, the quote unquote right action, or take the right path, knowing that that was the right path. And so I always remember that anytime I'm like, oh, which is the right way to go, just do something and you're going to figure it out. But if you sit there like second guessing yourself, I would rather hit the brick wall and know that the other way is the way to go with 100% certainty than to stand there forever saying, do I go left or do I go right? Do I go left or do I go right? Do I go left or do I go right? Or
Make
going
a
right
dang
and then
decision and
second.
go. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
And that's the
helpful.
second piece that stops people from manifesting, is that they stay stuck in the indecision, which then overwhelms them and then dysregulates the nervous system. And now their frequency is lowered because they're super dysregulated, they're stressed out, they're overwhelmed.
I think it was I don't know if it was Brian Tracy. It was one, I want to say it was Brian Tracy, but I don't remember. It was one of those old, I think I was reading a book and then I saw it in a video. And again, this hit me really hard. And it was like, think about like when an idea comes to you, or, like a thing comes to you that you really want, something that you want to manifest. And when it first hits your brain, how iron hot it is and how like obsessive you are over it and how like you're so excited about it. But in just one day of indecision, in one day of not taking that next step forward, how much that excitement dulls out. And then after a week or two, it's almost kind of like you don't even care about it anymore. And how quickly that happens emotionally in our bodies and emotionally in our brain, is how, like, I mean, I've been so fascinated about that, is how, like, I'll get a new idea today and it's just kind of, or a new thing I want to manifest, or a new thing that we want me. I remember, like whether it was this show, I mean, like, we wanted to do this show and I was so excited about it. Right. But how quickly, like, if you don't take that and other things that I've wanted to do that were maybe similar to this show, like in the past and past businesses or whatever, and I get super excited about it, but then all of a sudden it go on the back burner for a week. And then after that week, it would be like almost kind of like, that was a decent idea, but do I really need to do it? Like, is it really worth it? And then
Yeah.
like the energy's gone. So I think it's so important not only to take the step, but to take the step as immediately as fast as you can, because when you take that step as fast as you can, that energy actually increases, or it has for me, whether it's complete opposite. It diminishes if I don't. So I've just kind of learned that skill. It's almost became a habit where it's like when the iron's hot, strike it and go. Go as hard and as fast as you can. And yes, you're going to make mistakes along the way. And yes, things aren't going to be exactly the way that you might see it in your head initially, but that's the beauty of it. And I've personally found, and I know this was Tony Robbins that said this, was like the achievements in the journey. It's not in what you actually achieve. Like, like who you become is actually the prize,
I
not
think
get.
Yeah, I think in the beginning, we're so focused on the result. But then as we start taking the journey and seeing our own change, which, taking to stop time to reflect on how you've changed is important in that, the end outcome becomes less important, right? Like when we started hiking, it was like about all of, what can we see, and, what can we show, how can we show that we're living this awesome life, and blah, blah, blah. And now
Without
it's just like,
with thinking that we could walk 10 or 15 miles up and down mountains and be okay when we bit off a little bit more and we could chew on
but
one last, we both came back and we were just like, we can't move for 2.5 days.
but now it's more about the challenge for us, right? And like who we're becoming, how much stronger we're becoming in the process.
What's crazy is like we just got back from that camping trip and we did a 10.5 mile one, and both you and I were fine when we got back. When we did it last year, we could barely move.
Yeah. And
I think it's
so,
just super interesting to me, and
you
how
know,
quick.
it used to be about like how many hikes can we do, and like, how many things can we tick off the list, and now it's like how much can we challenge ourselves, like what are the beautiful places that we can get to and see and be present in. And it doesn't matter if we share it with the world or not. Like we were originally going to start a YouTube channel around like, we're going to show like all these hikes, and then we were like, you know what, like we don't have to, we can share pictures and
It's not about
pieces.
showing it off for us. It's about what are we able to, it's helped. It's changed my life. I think it's changed yours too. But I mean, like it's literally as simple as walking on a dirt path in the woods,
Yeah,
right? I mean, like it really has, because like we're completely different people than we were a year ago. I know
absolutely.
I mean completely
Yeah,
different. And as simple as it walking in nature for miles and miles, it's literally just changed the complete perception around like, and there's so many lessons that I've found in that too. Again, just being out there walking, it's like nature itself just has so many lessons. And I found that so many challenges and problems that I've had, if I just sit back and I take a step back and look at nature, it's all happening in nature too. And if I just watch it and I listen, the lessons that I need to learn happen when I stare at what's right in front of me, which is simply walking outside and watching and listening, which I absolutely love, because you know how deep I am when it comes to Native American wisdom and like old Native American stories. And I absolutely love the fact that like we've had a chance to experience that, and like having the people that come here and spend time with us in our programs, they come to Rapid Rewire, their inner mastermind or whatever it is, and us giving them a chance to do the exact same thing. I think it's really cool for me because I get to see that magic happen over and over and over again. And I know it sounds super simple, but it's one of the most magical things that you can ever experience.
absolutely. So the first place to start, you want to become better at manifesting. You want to raise your vibrational level truly without suppressing other stuff. It starts with regulating the nervous system. And
That's the first
so,
step, y'all. Before anything else, we talked about foundation in this episode. If you don't regulate your nervous system, it doesn't matter what you do behind that. You can easily just get basically slingshotted back by any trigger or anything, like any block that decides it wants to come up. And believe me, they keep coming up.
so what can people do? What do we have for people, Sid, to start regulating their nervous system?
We have this awesome 7-day nervous system reset that I'm going to give credit where credit's due. This is 100% Tiffany that came up with this, but it's 7 exercises. And now I'm going to give credit where I'm due. I do them. So, I have my routine around doing the exercises that help me stay recalibrated. But at the end of the day, I think like, these it's more than just 7 exercises, right? It's a start of a brand new life of feeling basically calm in the body, calm in the mind, and allowing blocks that come up, whether it's self-doubt, self-sabotage, anxiety, depression, imposter syndrome. I can go on and on and on. But it doesn't matter what it is. It allows your body to literally be reset in a way that allows you to handle it right properly, so that you don't allow it to spiral into stress, spiral into another block, or spiral into going backwards in what it is that you want to achieve in life, or the life that you want to build for yourself, or the day to day that you see yourself wanting to live, whether it's out on 97 acres in a high rise, whether it's, like being in a specific type of relationship, like having specific things in your life that you don't have. The start of it all is regulating the nervous system. Everything else falls behind that. But when you can regulate the nervous system, which fancy word for the electronic circuit tied to the brain. Thank you, Tiffany, for teaching me that, by the way. But the electronic circuit for, that's tied directly to the brain. Think about it. If you're not able to specifically control, right, the emotions that get generated by the brain, and you're not able to control what those emotions are, how those emotions get generated, it doesn't matter what you do behind it, because guess what? The second you get triggered, the second you get stressed out, the second you start having negative thoughts in your head, you're going to lose all the momentum that you had, and you're going to get taken back to step one. And I think like this is why the 7-day nervous system reset is so important. And it's 7 exercises that's in the 7-day nervous system reset that you can do in under 10 minutes a day. A lot of them under 5, that you can do under 5 and 10 minutes a day. That's going to help you get into an emotional state of calm, but it's also going to help basically building regulating the nervous system in a way that's going to specifically help you feel a lot better. I think at the end of the day, like, I can make fancy words around it, but it just helped me feel a lot better. The how quick some of these exercises, Tiffany, took away my anxiety, where I thought I wasn't able to breathe and I thought I was about to have a heart attack, and I stepped back for 5 minutes and I would do the psychological sigh, or I do the box breathing, or I do any of one of the 7 that you gave me, and in 5 minutes I had back control of what was going on. It's crazy. And I think, but it's also when you take a step back and you look at it, it's nature, like we talked about earlier. And it's like when you do the things that you're supposed to do, you can have control of your life. And at the end of the day, I think control of your life is what a lot of people want. And the 7-day nervous system reset helps you do that.
Absolutely. So you can get it at resetmysystem.com/reset, or click on the link in the show notes below. Thank you all so much for joining us for this episode. We will be back with another amazing interview and another podcast episode, just the two of us riffing on all the things about life very soon. Thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Station's fun. That was a lot of fun, guys. Hope you enjoyed it.